doesn't it? In a world that screams hustle harder, grind non-stop, and never stop moving, how could doing nothing possibly be the answer? But let's pause, just for a moment, and consider something deeper. You've been running, chasing, striving, trying to fix everything, trying to control the outcomes, the people, the future, worrying about what's next, to whisper, obsessing over the past, overthinking every move like it's a chess game with the universe. But what if I told you that your power is not in the fight, but in the stillness? What if the breakthroughs you've been waiting for, the peace, the clarity, the answers, aren't hiding in more effort, but in letting go? Because here's the truth most people miss: you don't manifest your best life by force. You allow it by alignment. Think about nature. The sun doesn't chase the sky. The ocean doesn't try to hold its waves in place. Yet everything happens in perfect rhythm, no resistance, no rush, just trust in the flow. You've planted seeds, you've done the work. Now maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop digging them up every 5 minutes to check if they're growing. Let yourself breathe. Let things unfold. That silence you fear, it's where the answers live. That stillness you resist, it's where your strength has been hiding all along. This isn't giving up. It's leveling up. It seemed to whisper. It's realizing that your energy is sacred, your peace is powerful. And when you stop trying to control every outcome, you start to attract what's truly meant for you. So today, do nothing. Not out of laziness, not out of apathy, but out of bold, beautiful trust. Let go, breathe deep, be still, and just watch. Watch how everything starts to fall into place. In a world that measures success by how fast you move, how busy you are, and how much you produce, the idea of stillness sounds almost rebellious. But what if stillness isn't weakness? What if it's the highest form of strength? What if doing nothing isn't laziness but wisdom? There's a kind of power that emerges when you no longer feel the need to chase, control, or compete. We seem to whisper. It's the kind of power that only comes when you finally become still enough to hear yourself. Stillness isn't about shutting down or giving up. It's about waking up to a deeper truth. When you stop all the noise, all the motion, all the desperate trying, something amazing begins to happen. You reconnect with the core of who you are. You no longer act out of fear or lack, to whisper not, but from a place of calm certainty. In that stillness, your mind clears. Your energy becomes magnetic, to whisper not. You no longer chase what's outside of you because you realize what you're seeking has been within you all along. Philosophers have said for centuries that the most profound revelations come not through effort, but through contemplation, through being. In silence, the universe whispers. In stillness, your imagination becomes a direct line to creation itself. And when you do nothing but believe, observe, and expect, life begins to shift around you, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. It's in this sacred stillness that your true creative power is awakened. When you no longer react to the outer world, you begin to influence it from within. So yes, while the world may rush and panic and strive, you get to be the calm in the storm. You get to be the one who trusts, who waits, who allows. And from that space, miracles unfold, not by struggle, by knowing. So don't be afraid to be still. Don't be afraid to do nothing. Because in that quiet, everything is already beginning to fall into place. We've been taught that control is power, that the more we manage, push, and micromanage every outcome, the safer we'll be, the more successful we'll become. But have you noticed how exhausting that is? How even after all the effort, things still fall apart, still don't go as planned? That's because life doesn't respond to force. It responds to flow. And flow only happens when you let go. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about giving into a deeper intelligence, a rhythm that's always been there, guiding everything. You don't have to control the timing of the sunrise, or remind your heart to beat, or force the seasons to change. They happen effortlessly. That same effortless precision is working through your life too, if you allow it. When you try to force results, you operate from fear, from the illusion that if you don't make it happen, nothing will. But when you let go, you shift into trust. And that trust is magnetic. It draws the right people, the right ideas, the right opportunities, not because you're chasing them, but because you're aligned with them. Neville Goddard taught that your imagination creates your reality, not your effort. You don't manifest by working harder. You manifest by believing deeper. And belief doesn't need force. It needs alignment. When your inner world matches what you want to see, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. That's the law. So when you do nothing after this, when you stop the panic, the constant fixing, the endless search for control, you're not quitting. You're surrendering to alignment. You're making space for something higher, something better, something beyond what your limited mind could plan. In that surrender, everything begins to move. Not because you pushed it, but because you invited it. You opened the door. And that's when things fall into place. Not on your schedule, but right on time. Look at nature. Really look. The stars don't compete for space in the sky. The moon never rushes to catch up with the sun. A flower doesn't force its petals open in a panic to bloom faster. Everything in nature follows its own rhythm, its own time, its own sacred unfolding. And yet, somehow, everything works in perfect harmony. Nothing is rushed, and nothing is out of place. This is the quiet wisdom of the universe. The same wisdom that lives within you. We as human beings are the only ones who resist this natural order. We stress, we force. We try to make things happen on our terms in our time, and then we wonder why we feel disconnected, burnt out, lost, seemed whisper not. We've forgotten how to trust the rhythm that governs all things, the rhythm that doesn't need control, only surrender. There is no tree that worries whether it will bear fruit this season. It simply receives the sunlight, the rain, the soil, and allows itself to grow. In doing nothing but being what it is, it becomes everything it's meant to be. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. Neville Goddard spoke often about imagination and belief as the true forces of creation. He never told us to struggle our way into abundance. He reminded us to rest in the knowing that what we assume to be true will shape itself into reality. Nature does not doubt. It does not overthink. It simply allows. And in that allowing, it thrives. What if you did the same? What if you let go of the need to interfere and instead trusted that your desires, once imagined, are already making their way to you? What if you stopped fighting life and started flowing with it? Doing nothing in this sense is not inaction. It's the conscious decision to align yourself with the natural laws that already know what you need, when you need it, and how to bring it into your experience without strain. So breathe in, be still, do nothing, and watch how, like the stars, the tides, the trees, you too seem to whisper, not fall perfectly into place. You've already done the work, maybe more than you realize. You've imagined, you've desired, you've asked, sometimes with words, sometimes with silent longing. You've planted seeds in the unseen soil of your consciousness. And now it's time to stop digging them up with doubt, fear, and restlessness. Growth isn't seen in the moment you plant. It's revealed in the patience that follows. We live in a culture obsessed with doing, with effort, with proving our worth through exhaustion. But what if the most powerful thing you could do right now is nothing? Not because you're careless, but because you care enough to trust that the energy you've already invested is working for you behind the scenes. Neville Goddard often emphasized the creative power of assumption. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That doesn't require constant action. It requires belief. It requires you to settle into the knowing that what you've imagined with feeling and clarity is already on its way. When you persist in that state, life begins to respond, not because you forced it, but because you became aligned with it. There comes a sacred point in every journey where more action doesn't help. It hinders. When the soil has been watered and the seed is buried deep, more digging only disturbs the process. Your imagination has already sent out the signal. Your inner world has already shifted. Now is the time to rest in that shift, to protect it with peace, not panic. This is the space where miracles begin to take shape, the moment when life starts arranging itself around your assumption. But if you rush in with doubt, if you try to force the flower to bloom before its time, you risk missing the beauty that was already in motion. So pause, exhale. You've done enough. Let the universe do the rest. Stop chasing the results. Be still, be expectant. And you're watching quiet wonder as everything begins to fall perfectly into place. Not because you pushed, but because you trusted. Silence is not empty. It's full of answers, but most people never stay quiet long enough to hear them. We rush through our days, distracted by noise, obsessed with movement, chasing clarity while running in circles. And yet the answers we seek, the truth, the direction, the calm, have always been waiting patiently in the stillness. We've mistaken business for progress. We think if we're not doing something, we're falling behind. But there is a kind of divine intelligence that only speaks when we're quiet enough to listen. Not to the outside world, but to that voice within, the one that's calm, steady, and knows far more than your fear ever could. That voice is drowned out by worry, by overthinking, by trying too hard. But in silence it begins to speak, and when it speaks it guides. Neville Goddard understood this. He knew that silence wasn't a void, it was a doorway. When you enter it deliberately, with trust and awareness, you find yourself face to face with your true power. Imagination. The mind, uncluttered by doubt, becomes the workshop of creation. In that silence, you see what you really want, not what the world told you to want. You feel the end result, not the chaos of the journey. You align not with struggle, with whisper not, but with certainty. You don't need to figure everything out right now. You don't need to chase 100 answers. What you need is to become still enough to allow the answer to rise up from within you, like mist from the earth, like light from the dawn. It's already there. You just have to stop long enough to receive it. So let the world spin. Let the noise pass you by. Be still, be silent, and seem to whisper not. And you'll begin to notice something extraordinary. The things you were chasing begin to show up on their own. The clarity you couldn't find suddenly finds you. And the life that felt out of reach begins to form itself quietly, beautifully, around your peace. In the silence, you become magnetic. In the stillness, you become powerful. Do nothing and listen. Everything you're waiting for is trying to speak. Ask. Doing nothing is not giving up. It is one of the most radical, courageous acts a person can commit in a world that constantly screams, do more. We've been conditioned to equate worth with productivity, action with value, and rest with failure. But there comes a point when constant striving becomes resistance. Resistance to the very flow that's trying to guide us. To do nothing is not to surrender in defeat, but to rise in wisdom. It is the conscious decision to stop scrambling and start trusting. It's the deep understanding that your power doesn't come from force. It comes from alignment. When you act out of panic or pressure, you step out of harmony with the life you desire. But when you rest in the quiet, knowing that what is yours cannot miss you, you stop reacting and start magnetizing. Neville Goddard taught that imagination, not effort, is the real engine of change. To assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled is not to force it into existence, but to dwell in the state where it already exists. That state cannot be reached through anxious action. It is accessed through inner peace, through stillness, through belief that is so firm, it no longer needs to fight for proof. And that's the shifting from effort to energy, from control to confidence. When you stop chasing the whisper, when you stop needing to fix or prove or persuade, something inside you stabilizes. You no longer beg the world for permission to receive. You become the version of you who has already received. And from that place, life begins to unfold around you, not because you pushed, but because you allowed. So the next time you feel the urge to do more just to feel worthy, pause, breathe. Remember that stillness is not the absence of progress. It is the space that allows real transformation to happen. Let the old story of struggle fall away. Trust the invisible forces already moving on your behalf. You are not falling behind. You are falling into place. And sometimes the most powerful step forward is not stepping at all. There is a certain peace that, once you find it, changes everything. To whisper not. It's not the kind of peace that comes from having all the answers or controlling every outcome. Seem to whisper not. It's the peace that comes from knowing you don't have to chase anything to be worthy of it. Not that what is meant for you is already moving in your direction. Not because you're forcing it, but because you're finally still enough to receive it. We spend so much time trying to make things happen, trying to earn what was already ours in spirit. But when you stop, when you step back and release the grip, you begin to attract from a completely different level. You no longer operate from need, you operate from knowing. That quiet seem to whisper, not steady knowing becomes the most magnetic force in the universe. It doesn't scream, doesn't beg, it simply draws. Neville Goddard spoke often about living in the end, feeling the reality of your desire as if it already exists. That state is not frantic, not desperate. It is calm. It is peaceful. It knows. And when you live in that state, your outer world begins to mirror your inner one. Life doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to presence. And presence is born in peace. The moment you stop chasing what you think you lack, you begin to embody the version of yourself who already has it. That shift, quiet, invisible, yet incredibly powerful, sends a signal. And that signal is answered not by chance, but by law. You become aligned, and in alignment, everything has permission to come to you. You have to whisper. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to fight for your place. You only need to return to the center of your being, where peace lives. From that place, clarity rises, people appear, opportunities unfold, doors open, doors you didn't even know were there. So let go of the chase. Set down the weight of striving. Choose peace not as an escape, but as a powerful declaration. I trust what's mine will find me. And then, do nothing. Watch quietly, confidently, as everything begins to rearrange itself in your favor, not through effort, through energy, through presence, through peace. So now, you stand at the edge of a new way of being, not one built on pressure or panic, but on presence, on trust, on quiet knowing. You've heard the call, not to run faster, not to do more, but to be still, to let go of the need to fix, chase, or prove. Because what you desire is already responding to the signal of your belief. The more you rest in that belief, the more the world bends to meet you. Not do nothing, not from doubt, but from certainty, not from weakness, but from alignment. Let your stillness speak louder than your struggle. Let your silence summon what effort could never reach. Step back, breathe deeply, and allow the universe to finish what you've already started within. And now do nothing after this, simply watch, with grace, with calm, with unwavering faith, as everything begins to fall piece by piece, perfectly into place.